You're not alone. You have someone. They're right there, physically present, texting back, showing up. And yet, there's this quiet ache that doesn't go away. This sense that you're somehow still on the other side of a glass wall, close enough to touch, but not close enough to actually reach. You love them, maybe they love you back, and still, at the end of the day, you feel more alone than you did when you were single. If you felt this, you probably told yourself one or two things. Either something is wrong with the relationship or something is wrong with you. Here's what the research actually says. Neither of those is quite right, and the real answer is harder to hear, but it's the only one that actually leads somewhere. Most people think loneliness is about being alone. It isn't. Psychologist John Casipo spent decades studying loneliness. His research produced one of the most important distinctions in modern history, in modern psychology: the difference between social isolation and perceived social isolation. Social isolation is objective. You are physically alone, no one around. Perceived social isolation is something else entirely. It's the feeling that you are not truly known, not truly seen, that the connection around you is real, but somehow doesn't reach the part of you that most needs to be reached. You can be surrounded by people and experience profound perceived social isolation. You can be in a relationship for years and experience it every day. Casiofo's research found that perceived social isolation is more damaging to both mental and physical health than actual aloneness, because the body and brain aren't responding to who is physically present. They're responding to whether you feel genuinely connected. And genuine connection is not the same as proximity. It's not the same as consistency. It's not even the same as love. It requires something most relationships never quite find. Here's an uncomfortable question. When was the last time your partner really asked you something? Not how was your day, not what do you want for dinner, but something that required you to actually go somewhere inside yourself to answer. And when was the last time you let them into whatever the answer was? Psychologist John Gottman spent 40 years studying couples. What he found wasn't complicated. It was precise. He identified something he called beats per connection, small moments where one person reaches out emotionally, looking for some form of acknowledgement, a comment about something they noticed, a worry they mentioned offhand, a laugh they're inviting someone into. The partner either turns toward the beat, acknowledges it, engages with it, or turns away, ignores it, misses it entirely. Gottman found that couples who stayed together and reported high connection consistency turned toward each other's beats at dramatically higher rates than couples who drifted apart. Nothing during the big moments, during the small ones. The accumulation of missed beats is what loneliness inside the relationship it actually feels like. Not a single dramatic failure. Thousands of small moments where the rich went unmet. And here's the hardest part. Most of those missed beats happen not because one person doesn't care, but because both people have quietly stopped being vulnerable enough to make them. At some point in almost every long relationship, something shifts. The only vulnerability, the willingness to show the unfinished parts of yourself, starts to close down. Not all at once, slowly, almost imperceptibly. You stop mentioning the thing that's bothering you because you don't want to start a conversation that goes nowhere. You stop sharing the thought that feels too strange or too small. You stop asking for what you actually need because the gap between what you need and what feels safe to ask for gets wider. And the other person does the same. Psychologist Brent Brown's research on vulnerability and connection produced a finding that seems counterintuitive until you sit with it. Vulnerability is not weakness. It is the mechanism of connection. The only way two people actually reach each other is through the willingness to be seen in an unfinished, uncertain, imperfect state. When that willingness closes down, the relationship continues, the routine continue, the logistics of a shared life continue. But the connection, the actual felt sense of being known by another person, starts to thin. And one day you look up and realize that you are living alongside someone rather than with them. That's when the loneliness arrives. Quite persistent, confusing, because everything looks fine from the outside. Here's something most people in relationships do without realizing it. They perform okayness, not because they're dishonest, because they are afraid. Afraid that the real version, the one that's exhausted or unsure or carrying something heavy, will be too much, will change how they're seen, will shift the dynamics in ways that can't be undone. So they present the edited version, the version that's handling it, the version that doesn't need to do too much. The partner receiving that edited version, responding to the edit, not to the person underneath it. Over time, both people are in relationship with each other's performed versions. The real people, the ones that fears and doubts and the things they have never said out loud, are somewhere behind the performance, unreachable, unknown. This is what loneliness inside a relationship actually is. It's the distance between who you are and who you're presenting yourself to be, multiplied by number of days you've been doing it, felt most acutely in the presence of the person who is supposed to know you best. Psychologist James Panabaker's research found that the act of expressing genuine emotional experience, putting it into words, sharing it with another person, has measurable positive effects on psychological well-being and immune function. Not therapy, not grand revelation, just honest expression. The body keeps the score of what the mouth won't say. And the loneliness you feel is often the cost of all the things that you decided weren't safe to bring into the room. Sometimes the loneliness in a relationship isn't really about the relationship. It's older than that. Attachment research going back to John Bowley and Mary Ainsworth established something that decades of subsequent research has consistently confirmed. The way we attach our earliest caregivers create a template, a set of expectations about what closeness feels like, what it's safe to need, and whether other people can be trusted to actually show up. For people who grew up in an environment where emotional needs were consistently unmet, or met unpredictably, or met with discomfort or dismissal, the template carries a specific message. Being truly known is dangerous. Needing too much will cost you the relationship. So they get close, but not all the way close. They maintain an internal distance even inside the most external proximity. They feel lonely in the relationship because part of them is making sure they always have one foot slightly out the door. Not because they don't want connection, because some part of them learned very early that full connection isn't safe. This is the loneliness that no partner can fix. Not because they're not trying, but because the wall isn't being built against them specifically. It was built before they arrived. And the work of dismantling it is internal work, slow, often requiring more than just the relationship itself. Here's the part most relationship advice skips. The loneliness inside the relationship can only be addressed by increasing the actual quality of connection, not the quantity of time together, not the frequency of date nights, not the resolution of surface level of conflict, the quality of being genuinely known. And that requires two things that are both simple and genuinely difficult. First, you have to stop performing okayness, not all at once, not dramatically, just incrementally. Start with something small and true, something you've been keeping just slightly inside. Say it out loud. See what happens. Gottman's research shows that the couples with the deepest connection are not the ones who are sharing everything. They're the ones who have learned to turn toward each other's small moments of real feeling. The beat doesn't have to be enormous, it just has to be real. Second, you have to get curious about your partner, not about their schedule or their preferences, about what they're actually carrying, what they're actually thinking about, who they're actually becoming. People change inside long relationships. The person you're with today is not exactly the person you stayed with. And if you're not staying curious about who they are turning into, you're in a relationship with a version of them that's increasingly out of date. Loneliness inside a relationship is often two people who have stopped being curious about each other. You have replaced genuine interest with assumption. The cure isn't grand, it's a question, a real one. And then the patience to actually hear the answer. You came into this video feeling something most people don't see out loud. That being with someone isn't the same as not being alone. That's true, and it's one of the hardest truths about intimacy. Because the loneliness inside the relationship isn't a sign that you chose wrong. It's a sign that connection has thinned somewhere, that something real has been replaced slowly and quietly by something performed. And that can change, not with a conversation, with 1,000 small ones, with the willingness to reach, even when reaching feels risky, with the decision to stop editing yourself quite so carefully around the person who is supposed to know you best. First, the loneliness you feel isn't evidence that you're with the wrong person. It's evidence that the connection between you has a gap that hasn't been named yet. Second, that gap didn't form overnight. It won't close overnight, but it closes in the direction of honesty. Every time you say something true instead of something safe, you close it slightly. Third, if the loneliness feels older than the relationships, it probably is. That work is yours to do, not alone, but yours. You're not too much. You're not broken. You just haven't been fully met yet. And neither probably has the person sitting next to you. If this named something you've been feeling, subscribe. Thank you for watching the video until the end.